I can tell you there's something different here. The spirit is different. The ambition is different. Here we are thirsty. We are even thirstier than people in Stanford. We are hungry because we want to show to the world that it is possible to reinvent the future of the world in Africa.
Welcome back to Wise on Air, the podcast where we talk to the world's leading minds on the future of education. My name is Bassem Hijazi, producer of the show. Who you just heard in that intro was Yassine Laghzioui, a visionary who's building what could become the next great innovation hub of Africa. But what does it take to nurture such an ambition and turn it into reality? How can a university in Morocco aspire to rival the likes of Stanford in fostering entrepreneurship and innovation in the region? Today, we dive deep into these questions with Yassine himself. As the CEO of UM6P Ventures and the Director of Entrepreneurship and Venturing at Mohammed VI Polytechnic University, Yassine is at the forefront of a movement to reinvent Africa's future through technology and innovation. In this episode, WISE director and host of this episode, Elias Felfoul, explores the story behind UM6P, often called the Stanford of Africa, and how it's shaping a new generation of entrepreneurs. We discuss the unique challenges and opportunities in the African market, the role of deep tech in solving global problems, and the art and science of venture capital in an emerging ecosystem. Join us as we uncover how Yassine and his team are working to prove that it is indeed possible to reinvent the future of the world in Africa. Let's dive in.
Yassine Laghzioui, it's such a pleasure to be in Morocco. I came with not a lot of expectation. I wanted to really come humbly experience what's going on in Morocco. I had some signals that something is cooking, something is happening, but I left it to be curious and to just naturally experience UM6P campus and the Deep Tech Summit. And I have to admit that I can only be super proud as a North African, as an African, about the work you guys have started to do. So I'm super happy to have the conversation with you. I'm always curious about people's journey, and the WISE podcast is about inspiring the next generation. Before getting into this amazing platform, who are you and how did you start, and what can you give us? Can you give us back? Let's go back to school. Let's go back to primary school. Were you a good student?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I was a good student, sometimes I was a bad student. It depended whether the topics, the subjects were interesting or not. I'm someone who can be very well focused on the subjects that are interesting to me, and the subjects that are interesting to me are all related to the big subjects that make the humanity dream. So I always loved engineering. I always loved topics that are challenging the human mind. So yes, I was good and I was bad at the same time, but yeah, we're gonna need to ask my teachers for that.
I love that. And so you had some teachers who have inspired you?
Yes, a lot. Yeah, I mean, I did most of my education in public schools in Morocco.
In Morocco?
Yeah, most. I mean, afterwards in university, I went to France for a short period, but I did public school. That means that it's up to you to study or not. It depends on your ambition. It depends also on luck, whether you're going to find a teacher who's going to inspire you or not, who's going to follow you or not. And there were many, many teachers that understood that I was a little bit different and that I needed a little bit of attention in terms of the way I do things. They know that if I'm not interested, I'm not going to solve a problem. I'm not going to do my homework if I'm not interested. So few of the teachers inspired me. And now that you're asking the question, I would really love to meet them someday to say thank you for all what they did for me.
Yeah. I do remember that most of the best classes that I had, the best performances that I had, a teacher was behind. We've been talking a lot about the topic of tutoring and how AI is going to transform. I'm excited about all these skills assessment and personalized learning journey that AI is gonna bring, because probably we're gonna learn from what you're good at and where you're bad at, and that AI is gonna focus on supporting you and uplifting you. Or we might lose that relationship with those very special teachers.
Or maybe AI is going to be a great teacher for us and much more empathic. I mean, who knows?
Maybe. So you go to university in France.
Yeah, exactly. I went part of it in Morocco, and afterwards I finished the last year in France. And this was a quite special experience. It was my first time outside the country. And I worked a lot. I remember that I wanted to prove to my French teachers there that as a Moroccan I can do things. And I was working on a subject related to mechanical engineering and the materials. So we were trying to build a new material that's capable of resisting harsh conditions. And yeah, I remember that I worked day and night there. I was inspired because that was a big challenge for me on two dimensions. The first was personal, because I came from Morocco to France. So I wanted to prove that we can make something different there. We can be excellent there. And the second dimension was scientific and related to the subject himself. So I needed also to prove to myself and to my colleagues that it is possible to develop a new innovation within the labs in a super short time. It was less than 1 year. And I succeeded at the time, and I was super proud of that. So I would say that my experience in France marked me. But at the end, I remember that I had an offer from a company that used to work with the university there, the engineering school. And I had to make a decision whether I'm going to stay in France or come back to Morocco. And it was one of the most difficult decisions in my life at the time, because it was like, what do I want to do with my life? Am I going to stay like what did many of my colleagues there who went with me? Most of them stayed, by the way. Or am I going to come back to the country and try to contribute in building something here in Morocco as a Moroccan who learned from France, who learned from the French system, but who is willing to come back and do something for his country? It was a very harsh decision, and at the end I chose to come back to the country. And I think I never regretted this decision. This is one of the best decisions that I've ever made, because in France I was one among the others, but in Morocco I was the one dreaming of building a brighter tomorrow for an emerging economy. And as I told you, I mean, when I'm not challenged, I'm not efficient. So because I was always challenged in Morocco, when my objective was to thrive and to build things that are going to contribute in redefining Morocco, just help me keep the passion, help me keep motivated. And yes, all what I did today, I made it because I was challenged.
It's a big risk you took, because you could have had like many others, decided to stay in one of those big companies in Europe, or even move to the States or Canada. And then you decided to come back here, while I think we're talking about 10 years ago. 17. You look younger. So 17 years ago, things were not, the path for Morocco to take off was not that clear yet. I mean, we're not talking about, you're coming back and everything is on a red carpet. It's a major risk you took for the career to contribute to your country.
Exactly. That was a big risk. That was sometimes depicted as crazy by my friends, because many of my friends had one objective, is to have the French passport. Meaning it's like an insurance. And I can understand that. I mean, if you're okay with that, if this is what you want, it's okay. I can't criticize that. But for me, it was always about purpose. And, before, I never said that to someone outside my intimate circle. But when I was in school, I did politics. So I did a lot of politics. And I was trying to contribute in a political party by meditating for a better tomorrow for the country. And I tried very hard to make the youth's voice heard, whether in the party itself or within the political institutions. And I even was the general secretary of the local youth organization of the party. So I had a relatively leadership position there. And I can tell you that my heart beat faster when I was talking about what it should be done
Yeah.
to build a better future for our children here in this country. So I can tell you that even though the decision was risky, it was aligned, super aligned with who I am. Yeah.
With your values, with
Yeah.
your principle, with your vision.
Yeah.
It's paying off.
Yeah. At the time, I didn't know if it would pay off or not.
Yeah.
Maybe if I stayed in France or afterwards in the US, maybe the financial outcomes would have been better. But this is not what animates me,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. It's great to have the right balance between fulfillment and impact. And yeah, why not finance? But most people that I spoke to, if they're only focused on the finance part, there's a huge missing part of the fulfillment and even happiness. Don't get me wrong, we all want to be a bit more financially independent and so on. You have, of course, I heard you in one of your keynote speech that you joined an important institution of the country, which is OCP. And that basically a new chapter in your life, because OCP took you to come in and lead the UM6P Ventures. Why you decided to go to a national institution rather than private sector in your own country?
Yeah, so at the time I was in France, and I met the HR representatives of OCP Group in one of the that were exhibiting, I think, in Lyon City, in a recruitment.
Maybe for the audience, you can explain what OCP, because it's very important to understand
Sure.
the link between OCP and all the investment that is happening. Yeah.
So OCP Group is one of the biggest, if it's not the biggest company in Morocco, and one of the most inspiring success stories in Morocco. Maybe afterwards I can develop, because I witnessed the evolution of OCP, who was just, a government department at the time. When I joined, it was almost just bureaucratic corporations under the leadership of the government. So, and I can tell you afterwards how it evolved. But at the time, so OCP Group, which was one of the biggest company in the country, I met them and they asked me for my CV. I gave them my curriculum, and they called me back after a couple of weeks saying, look, we met you there and we're super interested in having you in an interview for a job as a mechanical engineer. So I talked to my mom, I talked to my father at the time, Allah yarhamou, and my father said, look, are you talking about the OCP Group? I said, yes, it's OCP Group. He said, look, I read a book of this guy. This guy is named Fouad Laghzioui. He wrote a book about the time when he was at OCP, because Fouad Laghzioui also works as an engineer in OCP Group. And he said crazy things about this company. I just want you to read it before deciding whether you're going to join it or not. So I said, okay, that's a good point. So I'm going to buy the book. And if I'm with OCP today, it's only because I didn't have a chance to read the book.
It's a good story.
Yeah, he was, and now I invited him in one of the panels. It's crazy. I said, Fouad, you almost made me not join the group. Yeah. So I joined the group because that was big enough for me to consider militating within the group for a better tomorrow of Morocco. Because I could have the means within OCP Group to do something different and to have a good impact on for my country. So I said yes. And my mom supported my decision, my dad as well. So I came back from France. I had an interview with an executive, I think he was the chief operational officer at the time. He told me, look, I like your profile, the interview went well, so what I want you to do is, I want you to go to Safi site. I want you to stay there for a couple of months or 6 months, just to learn how industry and operations are being held and are being operated. And I want you after this time to come back to the headquarters. I want you to help me with the strategy. So I said, okay, that's a fair point. So I want to work in Casablanca, so I'm going to go to Safi and I'm going to learn about operations so I can have more legitimacy when I do strategy. So I went to Safi site, started working in one of the plants. And after a couple of months, this guy quitted OCP. And I said, wow, he was replaced by someone else. And I said, with whom I can talk?
Going back to headquarters?
Yeah, no, that was impossible. I talked to the HR guy. They said, look, there is no way we can help you for that, man. You're stuck there. So I stayed in Safi site working as a mechanical engineer. And they gave me the oldest plants in the sites to maintain, because I was the youngest. And I remember that the name, it was a sulfuric acid plants. And it was like, 40 years old plants or 50 years old plants. super hard to maintain, so I was responsible for maintenance. And because I was the youngest, and that was the toughest job, I mean, they gave me the job, and no, it's fair. You're the youngest, so yeah, deal with it. But this was the best training. Exactly. I mean, that was the best training I ever get, because I could go inside the equipment every couple of months. In other plants, you need to wait a couple of years if you want to see what's looking. I learned a lot. The number of breakdowns was huge, and for each breakdown, you understand how to manage the team. You understand how to manage the equipment. You learn in 1 year what you could learn in 5 years.
The best way.
Yeah, exactly. I like the expression. So, and even the relationship with my team was so special, because we had breakdowns every day. So we had urgencies every day, and it's like being a doctor that is meeting your team every day. You fix a problem. It's like a team building the hard way.
Yeah.
You get to know them much better, because in difficult times when you know your team. So I learned a lot in terms of management, especially that I had to manage 30 people when I was outside of school for the first job I had. So it was like learning the hard way, learning a lot, and after 6 or 1 year exactly, the chairman of OCP Group decided to launch what he calls the operational transformation. And the operational transformation was an idea of the chairman that said, look guys, we are one of the oldest companies in Morocco, and we are not efficient at all. This was his bold statement. And he said, we are going to launch a project where we're going to double the production with zero capex investments.
Bravo.
We are going to do that just by changing the way we do things, just by operational efficiency. At the time, I remember the senior directors that was in his team, at least 80%, if it's not more, were against these projects. They didn't believe in it. They said it's just impossible to do what we couldn't do for years. How would you double the production or even sometimes triple the production without any investments? And they didn't buy in. And because I was on the front, I could see this misalignment between an ambition of a chairman coming from the US or coming with a cultural Anglo-Saxon culture with big dreams, and the senior management who have been managing the company for tens of years, and now we have someone who never managed industrial company asking them to double production without investments. And I was at the front line. I said, things are starting to be interesting.
Yeah.
This is the kind of projects that inspire me and make me work even harder.
Yeah.
They called me back because I was the youngest, and they say, look, do you know these projects? Do you want to work on it? We know it's difficult, or if it's not impossible.
We'll give you the chance.
Let's do it. And I had the chance to be 100% full-time on the project. I took the opportunity. This is, for them, it was impossible, but for me, that was the opportunity to seize. So I worked as a change agent. This is how they call the young guys who joined the project, change agents. I worked with the consulting firm, and in my division and in the line I had in charge, we realized the objective in 6 months. That was crazy.
Wow.
And the senior management who didn't believe in the project at the beginning, they said, there is something wrong with the figures. How can you achieve that? Just by changing the processes, by working with the team, just by listening to the feedback of the people on the front line.
And that was purely human resources. No technology yet.
Zero investment.
Not investment, technology.
The only technology that we use is paper and pens to write charts.
Those are great innovations,
I agree.
by the way.
Really. I mean, writing was one of the most disruptive technologies that the human species has discovered. So we had only charts without any screens, so just charts.
Organizations and team
building,
and probably collaboration and communication.
Exactly,
all the stuff that we need. For efficiency.
Exactly. Some SMED, some tools that would allow you just to be more efficient in operations. And I was there, so I witnessed the operational transformation from day one. That was just mind-blowing. And this is where I like to really enjoy working on the project that the chairman launched at the time. So afterwards, I went back to managing plants, and afterwards I became what we call the global performance manager, meaning I was an internal consultant. I was the guy who was sent to the sites to help them
fix problems.
Yeah, it's
We have
also
a problem. No, we know.
I wasn't the guy who solved the problem, but I was the guy who facilitated the collective intelligence that would solve the problem.
It takes sometimes that level of, I call it leadership, because you could have a group of people, but you need that element that bring them together, that make them understand their weaknesses and strength, and focus on how they join forces and how they focus on their strength to work together.
Exactly. I mean, they needed to understand first that it's possible.
The mind change.
Exactly. The mindset shifts. I mean, it's like, guys, this is possible. We're going to do it. Second, they needed someone who to facilitate the debate. And third, they needed also the tools. I learned them from the experience I had at the first time. So it was like an empowering of the team. So yeah, and it was lots of travel as well. So meeting new people every day, that was just amazing. A human experience where you have sometimes a team who is believing that they can do better, and you have the manager who is not. And you need to manage discrepancy in terms of objectives and ambition. And you need also to try to convince the manager to empower his team.
Yeah.
You don't need to decide on everything if you want to be more efficient.
Yeah.
So I did that for a couple of years, and long story short, afterwards, I was promoted to manage one of the subsidiaries of OCP Group, named the GFC5, George Fertilizer Company 5, who basically did two things: producing fertilizers and phosphoric and sulfuric acid. And enjoyed at the beginning. I would be frank with you, this was something that managing a big team, 300 to 600 depending on the season, because we have also outsourcing. So this is a big team and you need to inspire them. This is a big management role. And again, I needed to learn the hard way. There were difficult moments. There were good moments. But this time you don't have just 30 or 20 or 10. You had hundreds of people that you need to inspire, you need to manage, and you need to listen to. That was like also an experience that changed the man who I am today, because I understand that delegation is key. You can't manage everything by yourself. You need to, you need to encourage, to empower your senior guys, which is also a different type of management style, so they can also be leaders. So managing leaders sometimes can be even much more challenging than managing just team leaders or technical staff. Because the leaders have also inspirations. The leaders are also difficulties. The leaders are also managers. It's like being the meta leader for them. So I learned a lot for that, but to be frank with you, that wasn't sufficient for me. Managing a subsidiary that does only operation, something that I've been doing for more than 10 years, was not enough. And this is when I joined another project, crazy project launched by our chairman, which is the movement. The movement is something that doesn't exist in the management literature. Something that was invented in OCP by OCP and by Mustafa Turab. So maybe in the official documents, you can read another definition. The movement says everyone can be the CEO of the company. Everyone is the CEO of the company. And everyone can act as the CEO of the company. And if you want to be a CEO, you need the power. If you want to be the CEO, you need a vision. If you want to CEO, you need the ambition. If you want the CEO, you need data. So if you want to be CEO, it means that you have access to everything and you can do everything. But you have the accountability, which is very high, because as CEO, you are responsible of the results of your action. But the movement was, for me, giving this responsibility to all those who are capable or who are willing to take it. It was a crazy project, one of the craziest that I've never encountered. And it is, I don't want to. The story is very long, because the movement is really the managerial experience that can be taught in the best schools in the world, and it is taught actually in HBS, in Harvard Business School.
In parallel to all of that, something starts cooking in this village. We're in Ben Gharir, which is a village, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. By the way, the anecdote that I have a lot of Moroccan friends, and most of my Moroccan friends, when I told them I'm going to Ben Gharir, he said, "Oh yeah, I used to stop there to eat barbecue." because we did not have a highway from Casablanca to Marrakesh. So everyone, the family stop is in Ben Gharir to eat the famous barbecue. And if everyone comes to visit Morocco, they really have to experience that. Something was cooking here because, first of all, this area is also an important village for OCP. And then someone had a vision to create a university. Walk us through that, or your understanding. I don't know how much you were involved in the build-up of the university, but can you just give us a little bit of history of how this started and then bring us to your role today?
So I think that the university was a spin-off of the movements.
Okay.
This is my...
So that's the link. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So the movements was like a big thing, saying that we need to build the OCP of tomorrow through you guys, through the employees, through the people who are on the front. So the movements is the first link that I had with the university, because I started my first company when I was 19, first startup. So during the movement, I decided to start a corporate startup. So I decided to found a startup named Fovatech. At that time, it was OCP Tech. And I did it like it was a real startup. So I started by myself. I tried to raise money, bootstrap, doing things. People resisting me, trying to be resilient, trying to raise money among the sponsors, etc. And this is where I discovered that we can reinvent a company within the company by building something very new. I started this company and this corporate startup, and it evolved. And afterwards, OCP needed a safe space for such type of initiatives. At the beginning, it was imagined in 2012 as an OCP university that is going to be the innovation center of OCP. But afterwards, the vision changed because the vision was so strong that we couldn't keep it only for OCP. That wasn't fair for Morocco and for Africa. So the vision afterwards was to be the hub for innovation for Morocco and Africa. And it was built over 3 pillars. The first pillar was R&D. The second is excellence in education. And the third was entrepreneurship and technology transfer. So the university was the bet of OCP Group and of the country on Morocco as becoming the Silicon Valley of Africa, because we cannot build an innovation hub without a university. That's just impossible.
There is a Stanford vibe here.
Exactly. I liked, if you were in the summit, I liked Gilles Babinet's quote when he said, Ben Gharir is the Palo Alto of Morocco. And Palo Alto, as you know, is near San Francisco. This is where Stanford is, etc. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and they invested. So obviously they gave the name. It's not any name they chose. Yeah. So the pressure is high to deliver. That's number one.
Yeah.
And number two, those 3 pillars is very strategic, is very futuristic. Any aspiration, or it's purely OCP imagining what the future of this continent could look like? You guys looked at the models in the US, or you said, you know what, there's no model that matches aspiration. We're just going to test something. Just walk us a little bit into your observation.
So first of all, I agree with you. Having the name of His Majesty is a big responsibility. The mission of UM6P is going to be beyond Morocco and beyond Africa. Yeah. And yes, this was a huge responsibility, and we still feel it every day. For the question about the model, I've been witnessing what Mustafa Sarab was doing since 2008, I think, 2008. I don't think that he's the guy who's copying and pasting things from the Western world. He's not the type. All what he does, it's a model that he creates with his teams. So I think that UM6P doesn't exist in any place in the world. We can have a lot of synergy with the similarities with Stanford University, with Harvard University, with MIT, and with other universities in the world, even with Kaus University in Saudi Arabia. But the model of UM6P is unique because it's a model that is going to implement innovation in emerging markets. In a place where talent exists, but there is a mismatch between the skills of the talent and the need of the market. when the capital is scarce, when things are much more difficult than in a region like Stanford. So yes, the idea is there. We need a university, but what UM6P is doing is different from whatever you're going to find out in any other place of the world. This is something that was intended at the beginning to support the innovation stream of the company that is becoming the hub of innovation for the entire continent. This story is unique. And the way, because I'm being part of this story, I'm super, super honored to be part of it. I can tell you there's something different here. The spirit is different. The ambition is different. Here we are thirsty. We are even thirstier than people in Stanford because we want to. We are hungry. Hungry. We are hungry because we want to show to the world that it is possible to reinvent the future of the world in Africa.
I love this.
And yeah, many people are willing to do a lot to develop things here in the campus. And the other thing about UM6P, which is unique compared to other places in the world, when you are in Harvard or MIT or Stanford, I'm sorry for these guys. I'm also an alumni of Stanford, and I love this university. But when you were there is a feeling like Stanford is for the people of Stanford. There is an obsession about the fact that we are Stanford. We feel like we were part of UM6P because you came and you felt that your values are aligned with ours. Mm-hmm. So for us, there is an open-mindedness here. There is an openness. There is something different that makes everyone coming to UM6P feel they belong into UM6P, which doesn't exist in other universities.
I do agree with this, and I did feel a huge welcoming, and there's a lot of generosity here. There's a lot of pride, and when I spoke to a lot of young Moroccan, the volunteers, man, there's something there in their eyes. Almost their eyes are communicating, we're building something exceptional. We don't know where we're going, but hey, man, something is happening here. And that's so beautiful to witness. What is the state of innovation, according to your observation, in Morocco, but also broader speaking on the continent?
So I think that the current state doesn't reflect the potential. I'm talking about both Morocco and Africa. In Morocco, the numbers are super low in terms of venture capital investments, in terms of the number of startups that are emerging every day and every year. And there are many reasons of that we can maybe explore afterwards. In Africa, is the same. In 2022, I think we were at about $4 billion in terms of VC investments in the continent. And also, this is super, super low. This is less than 1% of the total VC funding in the world. And we're talking about a continent of 1.4 billion inhabitants. It doesn't reflect at all neither the size, neither the potential, neither the youth of the continent. So there are many reasons for that. I think the first is that there is a problem of market perception. Foreign capitals still think that Africa is super risky. And I think that we need to educate venture capitalists, investors, and also people all over the world how Africa is stable. People think that there are wars all over the continent, and that's not correct.
There's less war than more.
Yeah, exactly.
There are still some pots of conflict, but it's not over the 54 countries.
Yeah, but we cannot talk
There's
about
war
Africa
in Europe
as
now
one
also.
Country. Yeah, of course, yeah. So there is a big problem of marketing in Africa. And I'm telling you that's because when I will go to the US and I talk about venture capital entrepreneurship in Africa, they don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
They're like, tell me more, please. I want to know more. I'm interested. I want to allow some of the assets class I manage to this continent. So there is a big curiosity about the African markets. I think we're not communicating enough. We're not marketing enough this continent. Same for Morocco. Morocco is one of the most stable countries in the world. Morocco also is one of the most promising countries in the world. If you just check the infrastructure, it's like it has nothing to invite to more developed countries. You have highways, you have the
Now you have the TGV, which is the fast train between cities.
In the US, there is no TGV, right? So
the lobby don't even want to let train operate. They prefer plane and oil. But Casablanca, Tanger, it used to be 8 hours. Now an hour and a half.
That's amazing, man. Exactly. Beyond just the infrastructure and the capex, Morocco has the human capital in Morocco is just amazing. I'm not talking about the capital of the youth only, but the skilled capital is huge. Thanks to the foreign investment that fueled into the country during the last decades, it's allowed us to have a solid base of skilled workforce that can support any industrial revolution in the country. You have also, in terms of investments, it's super professional in Morocco. The Moroccan banks all over the continent, they're replacing French banks all over the place.
I mean, that Tijari Bank is one of another success story of Morocco.
Exactly. And this is not easy, man. I mean, to become international in terms of finance and banking, that means that you have something in your grasp. So I would say there are all the ingredients of success are there. But it's not reflected in the numbers. It's not reflected in the results. And this is where UM6P comes. This is where the entrepreneurship and the venturing activities within UM6P come. We are here to trigger this evolution. We are here to trigger this progress. We are here also to trigger the emergence of a real ecosystem in Morocco, not as a local ecosystem, but as a hub for Africa. We want to leverage all this in French atout, all these ingredients that Morocco have, to build an ecosystem, a safe space for all African VCs, all African entrepreneurs, all the VCs all over the world who are willing to invest in Africa to come here and to contribute and build.
As a getaway to the continent.
Yeah. And, even when you say getaway, maybe some people would think it just,
Passage, but it's not.
Morocco is really geographically positioned between Europe and Africa, between the world and Africa.
Yeah.
It can really play this role. And now Morocco is also Francophone, but also Anglophone.
Yeah, most young people speak very well Arabic, French, and English. That's a massive asset.
Exactly. This is a big asset. And I think that in terms of policy making, Morocco is doing great things as well. We're starting to see governments understanding the necessity to simplify the regulatory framework.
Yeah.
So it's like something big is happening. I think it's happening faster
than you all thought.
Yeah, than we all thought. And also we need to communicate about it so the people can grasp it. Something is happening here. We need to go to Stargate. We need to go to UM6P. We need to go to Techno Park in Casablanca. We need to check what's going on so we can really reflect the big potential, the untapped potential of Morocco into numbers.
UM6P, I have two questions. They could be linked. The UM6P, I understand there's a campus in Rabat. This is the main campus in Ben Gharir.
So we have 5 campuses all over the country.
And you have, so 5 in the country.
5 in the country.
Then you do also have satellite.
Yeah.
In Canada, recently in France.
And the US.
In the US. So then my first question, you have a national strategy to be present in all the territory. That I understand. Why the satellite internationally?
I think it's good to have roots. You need the roots, but you need to go all over the place. You need to be open. This is supreme. The Moroccan base, the Moroccan headquarters, to build all the R&D and entrepreneurship and education baseline and the foundations. However, UM6P is not considered as only a Moroccan university. UM6P is positioning itself as a Pan-African and global university. We are open all over the world. Many people are asking, how, if you want to position yourself into the innovation landscape, usually you need to have hundreds of years of existence if you want to really to be competitive. But UMP have less than 10 years, man. It's 7 years.
7 years, yeah.
And you saw what has already been achieved here. That would have never been possible without the global partnerships, without being open open on all the partners that help us build the curriculum, help us build the campus. I'll give you just a couple of examples. The curriculum of the medical school was inspired by the Harvard Business School curriculum. They helped the team build the curriculum. Imagine if we had to build everything from scratch. It would have taken tens of years. Maybe all the schools have been working with global partners. The same for entrepreneurship. We have one of the most successful programs, the Explorer programs, that was built with the MIT Sandbox. And they help us leapfrog.
Partnerships is very important when it comes to the right partners. Yeah.
Exactly. So to do that correctly, you need satellites. You need a presence. Even in entrepreneurship, there was a very bold decision about building the BIDRA fund in the US, in San Francisco. that is going to say, I mean, this is a big message, man. One would have asked, why having a venture capital firm in San Francisco? Why not having just the UM6P venture fund? But, open innovation and innovation doesn't happen when you close your doors. Open innovation happens when you're open-minded.
Yeah.
And this is exactly the message behind the BIDRA Innovation Fund. It is there to source the best technology in the world, to understand how things are going on, and to sign learning checks. So we can be open, we can build win-win partnerships with the startups that are in the portfolio and the funds that are in the portfolio. So they can leverage OCP Group and UM6P, and so we can also leverage and learn from them and also impact our ecosystem. So the satellites are a super smart idea, in my opinion, and they're there to last, I think.
Do the student get to, so some of the students here, do they have an opportunity to go to one of the satellite?
Look, I discussed with the head of UM6P France, my dear friend, and also with the general manager of UM6P Canada and US. And because the story is super fresh, we started just a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
So when I discussed with them, this is the plan. The plan is really to
create that movement between folks who can be selected there, they can come here. This is such an amazing conversation. I mean, I'm not seeing the time pass, but I do have a lot of other questions. I want to go to UM6P Ventures now, which you're heading the venture part. So just give us a bit of context, because this is almost a embedded VC within the institution.
Yeah.
And do you automatically invest in the best company that come out of here, or you operate like a VC? You don't only look at, you're not only going to favor folks that are coming out of 6P. Just few words on the venture you're leading.
So UM6P was the first venture capital firm that was created by the group. We started this adventure in 2019, but we were officially established in 2022. The idea was exactly to boost the ecosystem, because when we launched the entrepreneurship and venturing activities with UM6P, we started with an accelerator or an incubator, let's say. It was the Impulse program. And we said, we don't need to be all over the place. We're not going to just launch an incubator, and we're going to source the startups and the project holders, and we're going to qualify them to be able to raise money and to raise cash. It didn't go well, because for many reasons, and the ecosystem was nascent,
fresh and nascent. Yeah.
And the deal flow was super weak. So we understood that we needed also to start from very early. So we implemented the Entrepreneurship Academy, who is in charge of training and acculturating the potential founders and VCs. But when we incubated and accelerated, we discovered that we needed investors. I mean, the investors who would invest in VC and in technology, I mean, they were super limited in the country, and we needed to have our own VC if you wanted the sauce to take. And so we started UM6P Ventures, who is investing not only in spin-offs of the university, but in all types of startups that are coming from all over the continent. The idea is to invest in Pan-African startups who are willing to develop a disruptive product or service in the service of the continent and the world.
Yeah.
So this is our thesis. We have 3 or 4 verticals: green tech, health tech, industry 4.0, water tech, and
so real societal problems.
Exactly, and the world is facing.
Of water. There's massive issues related to
exactly something that's the subjects that have big markets and that where there is a big need. And so far we invested in 27 startups. The story was super successful. 14 of them are deep tech startups. And now we are really looking forward to the next chapter of our evolution. We are going to refocus our fund on Africa, and we're going to do more deep tech.
And I love this concept of focusing on deep tech, which is not any tech. You guys are looking at working with innovators that are going to solve serious problems related to the society, and those serious problems are solved through well thought through and researched technologies, which is different. You're not investing here in the next app or whatever, entertainment. You guys are focusing on how do we cure cancer? How do we find solution to the shortage of water? How do we solve these issues of no more rain?
Totally. I think being a VC, which is something I love, is not about the IRR or the financial returns. I really believe in that. Being a VC is about being able to solve the most challenging issues of the world. Is to be the institution that is behind the disruptive technologies that are going to solve the most difficult problems. So I think that the VCs had a big role. Sometimes it's misunderstood. The reputation of VCs, they're sharks and things like that. I don't agree with that. VCs fueled the cancer cures. They were behind the COVID vaccine. Without VC, we had never founded the airline technology. They were behind the SpaceX technology, which is going to be maybe someday saving the world. They are behind the Google. Google was a startup that was founded by a VC, which everyone knows, which increased productivity and now we're using every day. It's behind ChatGPT as well, which can be scary, but this is something big. So the role of a VC is super important because the VC takes a lot of risk. That's the PEs and the banks will never take. It's a different type of business, and taking risks is something super hard to make. You know, when I have a startup that I'm considering for investments, I can tell you sometimes I can't sleep because of that.
Of course.
When I'm about to make the decision, I'm asking myself two questions. The first, what would happen if I don't invest in the startup? And it would
fear of missing out.
And this startup would just change the world, or going to become the decacorn that is going to save the world. What would happen? How would I feel? And the second is, what if I invest in this startup and turn out to be a bankruptcy? So it's like a very hard decision, but this is the type of decision that is, at least these days, building the future of humanity and making our civilization evolve.
Are you more a data or an instinct type of investor?
So far, I'm an artist. I'm an artist VC, meaning that I combine empiric data with intuition and with feeling. So if I don't feel it, I don't invest in it. However, we are in the course of building a project where we're going to leverage data to identify what are the trends that we need to invest in and what are the types of founders that we want to invest in. We'll always take the decision by discussion with the investment team, by discussion with the IC, the investment committee, by discussing with our experts and with the people who do the due diligence. But we're going to use more data-driven decision-making algorithms so we can at least back our investments with something.
One of the panel yesterday was, Trixie, I think, the person in charge of the Dubai trade. She was a little bit perplexed when it comes to the AI algorithm choosing everything. So I hope you keep the art dimension in your choice and the feeling, because I don't think if AI and algorithm are going to replace the amazing intuition that a human have for another human. And I think the combination of both could be very powerful.
Exactly. This is what I wanted to say. It's good to have intuition. It's good to use art. But it's also good to have all the tools that are building or that are built over data, so you can just at least check things and not miss something obvious that you would never, because you know there are limitations to human brains.
100%.
Yeah, and if you remember, you talked about the panel yesterday. I don't know if you remember a guy named Finian. Who is
Finian Tan.
Tan,
from Singapore. What a story. What a man.
I mean, he was the first to invest in Baidu.
And
Baidu,
7 million out of 20 million.
Exactly.
Became 50 billion.
And he did that using his intuition.
Yeah.
I mean, he said, I felt something going on. And he repeated the story. What is crazy, that was not luck. He repeated the story tens of times. So this is why VC is considered the brightest minds of the investment teams to make decisions and to choose the next unicorns.
And be there at the right time, at the right opportunity. That's something I don't think technology will ever guide us to understand at the right time with the right opportunity.
Totally.
The last baby of this institution is the summit that we have all been invited to, which is the Deep Tech Summit. We just finished the 2-day summit, and it's been a very successful edition. I congratulate you once again, you and your team, for I organize summits I know how difficult, but also how rewarding. And most probably you're going to feel something it's called the Deep Tech Summit Blues. So as soon as you're going to leave the day, you're going to come back to it. Once you start organizing those international amazing summits, you will always want to come back to it. By 10 years of experience of doing Wise Summit. And it's painful, and we know it's painful, but when you finish, you see the result, you are hopefully looking forward to the next one.
It's addictive.
It's just addictive to be able to bring brilliant mind, allowing them a unique networking experience, allowing them to dream about a new story. I will tell you from now, I want to come back next edition. I want to be part of this journey. And I want to hear from you as final few words on what is the vision for the future for a Deep Tech Summit and what's the vision to attract more partners.
Good to know. Thank you. I mean, we would appreciate a collaboration, of course. So a few words about the summit itself and the project. I think the summit is here to stay. I mean, the impact that it had this year, the first edition, the inaugural edition, was just mind-blowing. When you do ecosystem building, when you work on entrepreneurship and venture capital, when you do events, it's not like just something that is luxury. It's the core business. It's your core, in the core of what your mission is, because connecting the VCs, the policymakers, the entrepreneurs, the researchers.
It's so important.
Is so important. And we are sure, and many people told me that. They said, look, I mean, the results and the impact of the summit is going to be huge. Many VCs are going to invest in startups exhibited here in the summit. And many policymakers are going to connect to the VCs and entrepreneurs to understand better what they need so they can perform better, so they can transform their crazy ideas into businesses. So the impact is huge. If you want to build an ecosystem, if our ambition is to transform Bengaluru city in the Palo Alto of Africa, we need to keep connecting and bridging these great minds. It is crucial. It is not just something that would add value, but it is a prerequisite to maintain and to have a sustainable ecosystem. This can be done through inviting the best minds in the world so they can share their experiences. We can organize reflection and debates about the most important issues that the key stakeholders are facing. And we can also build master classes to teach the youngest how they can navigate the very complex, let's say it's super complex to be an entrepreneur. And so the very complex environment of entrepreneurship, because when you're an entrepreneur, you're by yourself, man.
Oh, yeah.
It's a lonely journey.
Yeah.
And you need that type of support.
Yeah.
You need people to support you for that. And this summit is going to stay because this is in the core of the mission of UM6P.
Yeah.
This is why UM6P was built, to connect the people and to make people dream about the capacity and the willingness of the African continent to be also redefined in the future of deep tech in the world.
Thank you very much for this. I hope we can have part 2 where we can deep dive even more into the programs, the company you work with, the founder you're supporting, some of the success stories, some of the learnings. But for today, I know you're very busy, so I need to bring this to a closure. But it's been fascinating talking to you.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure meeting you and talking to you.